Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Glenn Hall, and I represent the defendant. As you know, the defendant has been charged by the prosecuting attorney of being insane because he believes in the flat earth, and therefore they're trying to take away all of his rights as a free-born citizen of these United States. I want to remind you, during voir dire, when you were being asked questions concerning your beliefs and your personal histories, that every one of you agreed that you could approach this case with an open mind. You all understood what was at stake, and you all told me that you could listen to the facts and then decide the case according to the facts, according to the evidence. Now I want you to remember that, because this man's life is at stake. The prosecuting attorney is going to be using an expert witness today. And here in the opening statement, I want to give you a brief synopsis of what to expect in the evidence in this trial. The prosecutor's expert witness is named Minute Physics. Minute Physics has a very popular video on YouTube. It's called The Top 10 Reasons Why We Know the Earth is Round. It's been watched by more than 1,624,000 people, and more than 24,100 people have liked that video. The prosecutor believes the things that Minute Physics has said. And so he's going to be using the expert testimony of Minute Physics in order to convince you of the insanity of my client. So let me now briefly go through the facts that the prosecutor will present to you through his expert witness. First, he's going to tell you that all planets that we've ever seen are round, and there's no indication the Earth should be any different. He'll show you pictures of, supposedly, of Jupiter and other planets in our so-called solar system. The defense will show you proof that a lot of these pictures are mere artwork. Someone has been paid in order to produce these pictures that look like globes. But even if you're not convinced that these are just pictures that were produced by computer-generated images or through an artist's handiwork, even if you believe that Jupiter is a globe, for example, why does that mean the Earth is a globe? See, there's no logical connection that would say because one is a globe, the other has to be a globe. Second reason the prosecutor will present to you is that there are different time zones on the Earth. His expert witness will say that day and night happens at different times at different places on the Earth. And then he'll proceed to tell you that this happens because we live on a globe that rotates on its axis once every 24 hours. That's the assumption, isn't it? See, he will be assuming that we live on a globe and that the Earth rotates. On the other hand, the defense will present you with evidence that shows that there is a sun and there is a moon that rises in the east, that goes across the circle of the Earth, and it sets in the west. Yes, the Earth is a circle, but it's not a sphere. The third thing that the prosecutor will tell you is that there is a Coriolis effect, and he will try to convince you that that Coriolis effect proves that we live on a global Earth. What is the Coriolis effect? That simply means that if you have a huge storm like a hurricane in the north, that the storm will rotate clockwise. If you have a huge storm in the south, south of the equator, then the storm will rotate counterclockwise. Now, the globalists, the expert of the prosecutor today, merely assumes that the fact that the Earth is a globe and that because it's a globe it causes that effect. But why would it cause that effect? The Earth is spinning, if it's truly a globe and truly spinning, it's spinning the same way north and south of the equator. Why would the wind change direction if you had a storm north of the equator or a storm south of the equator? On the other hand, the defense will show you reasoning that will explain how the Coriolis effect could actually happen on a flat Earth. And it has to do with electromagnetism, with the reaction of the sun and the moon to the electromagnetic properties of water, and especially salt water. Now, the fourth piece of evidence that you'll hear through the prosecutor and his expert witness is an idea called triangles. The expert is going to say, if you begin walking south and you go south 6,214 miles, and then you make a 90-degree turn to the west and go again 6,214 miles, and then when you've done that, you make another turn and go back up north 6,214 miles, you will end up where you began. Now, he uses a globe in order to prove that, and he shows you that on a globe that would in fact be true, but yet no triangle, of course, can have three 90-degree angles. So he says that proves that we live on a globe. No, it doesn't prove that at all. It simply, again, assumes that we live on a globe. I don't know of any place on Earth where you can walk 6,214 miles in one direction or drive it. But if you did that, I think when you made your last leg of that travel back up north, you'd be again 6,214 miles from your beginning. And then you'd have to walk 6,214 miles to make a complete square to come back where you were, and that would prove a flat Earth. Now, the fifth reason he's going to give you is that if you plant poles in the Earth that are 200 miles apart, and then you measure the shadow produced by the sun on those poles, that the shadows, taking into account the angles and so on, will prove curvature. But the fact is, if you put poles into a flat surface and you put a light source like the sun over it, you will produce angles, which again, if you wanted to assume that you lived on a globe, it would create a curvature. But again, this assumes that you live on a globe. The sixth reason the expert will give you is that constellations appear upside down south of the equator. And even posts a picture that seems to show that. Well, the defense is going to show you pictures from north of the equator, from North America, and pictures from Australia of Orion, and show you that Orion looks the same. It's exactly the same except for the perspective. Every star is in the same general position, and so on. I don't know how his expert ended up with that as a proof, because it simply is not true. Seventh reason that he's going to give you is that Magellan and other people have circumnavigated the Earth. So he believes that because someone has gone around the world in a ship, that proves that we live on a global Earth. Well, it doesn't prove we live on a global Earth, because the model that the defense will show you is a model where the North Pole is the center of the Earth, that the continents then proceed from there, that compasses will always point to the north because of the magnetic fields that God has created in this earth. But yet there are seas that go all the way around the earth, and that the earth is really a huge disk that has massive seas, and you can in fact circumnavigate this earth, this flat earth, on those seas. The eighth reason that the prosecutor's expert witness will give you is that he will claim that if you look across long distances, especially at sea, at a ship, for example, or even he'll use the example of Lake Michigan, from across Lake Michigan looking at Chicago, that you do not see all of Chicago, for example, or if you're at the ocean, that you will see a ship disappear around the curvature of the earth. We will show you ample evidence by using zoom lenses that that simply is not a fact. We will show you examples from as far away as 60 to 100 miles, where if there truly was curvature in the earth, then the thing you were looking at would have been well below the horizon. And yet, by looking through a zoom lens, you see the whole thing. If nothing else convinces you that we live on a flat earth, this will. Because there is simply no way that you could see the things that you can see if we lived on a globe. Finally, the expert witness is going to show you what he calls to be photographic evidence. He's going to show you a picture of the world, a picture of the world that NASA has presented to the world since around 1972. Some people call it the marble picture. The defense will show you many pictures that NASA has generated with computers, with the aid of computers and hand drawing, that they claim are pictures of the world, but can be shown to clearly be fake and to not actually show the Earth. In fact, NASA has their own expert witness named Neil deGrasse Tyson, who claims that the Earth is pear-shaped. And if you look at any of these NASA images, it's always a perfect round ball, a perfect globe, a perfect marble. And yet their own expert says it looks like a pear? No, these reasons that the prosecutor's expert witness will give do not prove that we live on a global Earth. The defense will show you that we, in fact, do live on a flat Earth. And I believe that after you hear all the evidence, that you will rule in favor of my client, the defendant, that you will acquit him, and that you will set him free. Thank you very much.